The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
The police are able to use the press to make the white public think that 90% or 99% of the Negroes in the Negro community are criminals. And once the white public is convinced that most of the Negro community is a criminal element, then this automatically paves the way for the police to move into the Negro community, exercising Gestapo tactics, stopping any black man who is on the sidewalk, whether he is guilty or whether he is innocent, whether he is well-dressed or whether he is poorly dressed, whether he is educated or whether he is dumb, whether he's a Christian or whether he's a Muslim. As long as he is black and a member of the Negro community, the white public thinks that the white policeman is justified in going in there and trampling on that man's civil rights and on that man's human rights. Once the police have convinced the white public that the so-called Negro community is a criminal element, they can go in and question, brutalize, murder unarmed, innocent Negroes, and the white public is gullible enough to back them up.
Our tongue is our gun and our wisdom is our ammunition. Welcome to Melanated Politics. I am Eric Clark.
Now I'm David Harper.
Politics will always be defined as war without bloodshed. Peace to all of our melanated brothers and sisters out there. Mr. Harper, how's everything been going, my brother?
You know, everything is everything's going all right. You know, just watching. I think I was talking earlier, watching history in the making, watching everything happen in front of our eyes. Whether it's Chauvin, whether it's George Floyd's family, whether it's our criminal justice system, whether it's our voting rights, whatever it may be. Just watching all of this unfold. We're living in a new era. Remixed era. We've seen this.
Yes.
We've seen this before, but at the same time, we haven't seen it before. But here we go.
Well, everyone, go ahead and call in that area code 323-815-4204, and let's go ahead and get it in. Dante Wright,
Yes.
our brother, rest in power, rest in peace, the Army Lieutenant Officer in Virginia.
Yes.
That's also on the menu. But first and foremost, that snake in the grass, Derek Chauvin, was found guilty for the public lynching of our dear brother George Floyd, initially over a fake $20 bill. On the way here, George Floyd, blood was running through my body. If I can honor his family and his friends by us just being one of the voices, thank you for allowing us to do that. How could you not jump outside of your own selfish body and put yourself in the shoes of George Floyd, especially if you have any slight resemblance to my dear brother David and I?
Watching the trial and watching his murder over and over again,
Yes, sir.
I forced myself to watch it because I needed to. One, I knew we were going to do the show. I wanted to have my facts straight. That's number one. let me just
Yes,
say
sir.
that. But two, I wanted, as painful as if that it was for me to watch, I know it was excruciating for his family.
Yes.
I know that Black people in this country.
Talk to me, brother.
Black people in this country have witnessed many of George Floyd's, but just not caught on tape. They've witnessed moments of injustice, moments of despair through our time in this country. And it's this dichotomy of hey, we've come a long way, but there's the reality that, like, no, we haven't come a long way. It's just the truth. And even though I'm very thankful and I feel very blessed to have my son, to have the family that I have, to be doing a show here at Morris Media Studios, watching that trial reminded me of you can never, ever, ever get too comfortable.
Not in good old-fashioned America.
Can never get too comfortable. You can never think as if the past is the past, because you're smacked in the face of reality. And when people say, because you just said modern day lynching, a lot of people have mentioned modern day lynching.
And I throw that book out there. Also, please continue to read. And for those who don't have the book, it's called 100 Years of Lynching. It's a book regarding literal newspaper articles that shows the literal articles in these established newspapers from Chicago to St. Louis to certain parts of Alabama, Arkansas, et cetera, that shows 10, 15,000 people at these lynchings. And Chris Cuomo, right? CNN?
Chris Cuomo, CNN, yeah.
He made a very important comment, and I usually don't quote these popular news sources. Nevertheless, I will say this. He said until black folk, pardon me, ladies and gents, until white folks' kids start having the same outcomes, dealing with the cops, until young white kids, young white boys get the same outcomes as young black men, that's when real changes beyond protest and setting things on fire and shut up and dribble legislation. Now, I need a favor. First of all, look at me right now. I need a favor. When you watch this video, put yourself in the shoes of George Floyd. Drop that beat, DJ, please.
Tonight, the crowd outside Cup Foods in Minneapolis erupting in cheers as they learned of Derek Chauvin's conviction in George Floyd's death. At the U.S. Capitol, members of the Congressional Black Caucus clasping hands as they listened to the verdict. The disturbing video of Chauvin with his knee on Floyd's neck as Floyd told officers he could not breathe stunned the world. The Memorial Day incident then inciting outrage with people from various races and backgrounds taking to the streets. In the nation's capital and across the country last summer, scenes of protesters face down in silence, remembering the 46-year-old father. The Black Lives Matter movement seeing a resurgence.
Black Lives Matter!
Black Lives Matter! And from Los Angeles to Phoenix, Orlando to New York City, demonstrators demanding justice for Floyd, but also for other African Americans who've died in police custody. At the Brooklyn Memorial Service, his brother Terrence telling our David Muir his family appreciated the diversity seen among demonstrators.
When you looked out into that crowd and you saw that sea of faces, black, white, Asian American, Latino, what did you make of it?
I just knew my brother was proud, because I know the whole Floyd family was proud of that. Because we all standing together. We all standing together for the cause of justice.
In September of last year, that intersection near where Floyd was arrested, renamed George Floyd Square.
Question. Was that video hard to watch? Was it harder to watch than literally being George Floyd, our brother?
going back to what you said about a modern day lynching, it made me think of George Floyd. It made me think of Eric Gardner. It made me think about what our ancestors went through living in this country, and seeing that on a regular basis, the life being choked from their father, brother, uncle, daughter, and being helpless, not doing anything. And it's a reminder that, and I struggle with this every day. Just real talk. I struggle with this because we both have sons.
Yes, sir.
I struggle with this reality of instilling in my king. I know you still in your king, that ain't nothing in this world can stop you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
But at the same time, because you are king.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, looking at the reality of there's going to be obstacles that
The reality is you using America. Using America.
and see that's the tough part. That's really the tough part. That's the tough part because America. Let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
The biggest reason why Derek Chauvin was convicted on all 3 counts was because of the jury pool. The jury pool. It had 6 white folks, 4 blacks, and 2 of mixed race. They could have been, Minnesota has a huge African population. Not Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar.
Yes. Yeah.
I've been in Minnesota.
Congresswoman Omar.
Yes. I've been in Minnesota. They have a huge, Minneapolis has a
They have St. Paul. They have
St. Paul.
Kenosha.
They have a diverse city. That jury pool was diverse.
Yes.
In the case of Philando Castillo, which was also in Minnesota,
Yes.
The police officer, even though that was on video,
Yes.
the police officer got off. But the jury pool was of 10 white folks and 2 black. So I say all that because if the jury pool was different, Derek Chauvin might have gotten off.
I understand that, but if you're not in the United States right now, just like we define politics as war without bloodshed, we define justice as justice means just us.
Yeah. I mean,
just us.
And
you cannot unsee what we have just saw.
It's not even so much that we can't unsee what we just saw, but it's not about seeing, it's about experiencing.
I understand that. But you know what? We don't need anybody's sympathy. We don't need anyone to agree with the outcome of the trial. We're not going to sing Kumbaya. We're not going to wrap a tailored suit around the United States justice system and pat it on the back. For those individuals that have been involved in this case and have worked hard, I won't be less of a man and minimize what they have done to bring forward this verdict. But for those of us that you won't see on quote unquote the cable news networks, we are totally dissatisfied with the legal system in the United States. Did it take the threat of a global, worldwide riot? Did it take corporations, to threaten or pull out if this verdict didn't come to pass as to what I was expressed prior? Are you going to believe your eyes, or will you be manipulated by a sucker? At the end of the day, it's really that simple. This is a cipher. And before I pass the mic back right, and peace to the 5% guys and nurses out there, how could you not jump outside of your own selfish body and put yourself in the shoes of George Floyd?
Here's the thing. A couple things happened in this case. One, I have to take the words of Keith Ellison, who is the Attorney General of Minnesota.
Attorney
General of Minnesota.
Former congressman.
Yes. Former chair of the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign in 2016. I got to say that, too.
Yes.
His statement was he wouldn't call this justice. He called it accountability, which is the first step towards justice. Chauvin, he faces up to 40 years from second-degree murder, up to 25 years to third-degree murder, and up to 10 years for second-degree manslaughter. The witnesses did him in. Genevieve Hansen, who was the Minneapolis firefighter who wanted to assist George Floyd, she wanted to go in the system. She saw he was dying. They wouldn't let her. Her testimony was powerful because this was a professional, I'm going to say a professional white woman who saved lives, and she wasn't allowed to save lives.
And they turned her down like a collar.
They turned her down
like a collar.
And then Chief, I want to make sure I pronounce his name right. Chief Medivia Aranda.
Yes, sir.
I probably messed up your name. I'm sorry, man. He's a police chief. He was very credible on the stand. This is the first time also you saw law enforcement and professionals go and say this was wrong. Katie Blackwell, who was an inspector, her quote was, "I don't know what kind of improvisation, what position that Derek Chauvin was doing." So there was so many things, but
yes, sir.
for black folks who are descendants of slaves in this country, from black folks who have a history of what it means
and
through generation,
and chain gangs,
sharecroppers, buying family members out of slavery, whatever it may be.
Yes.
This is,
and three strikers.
And three strikers. America. This is this is the first time America has said, you know what we've done as a country is wrong.
Yes.
But it took so much to, like, there's so many bodies before George Floyd, you know.
Okay.
And real quick, before you say this, the response to this from the conservative angle is
it's immoral. It's Confederate mentality like. But let me ask this quick question. If you met a wonderful human being, wonderful person, right? Single man, right? Let's do a hypothetical. Do you mind?
I do not mind.
My hypothetical. Let's keep the ball moving forward. If you had to jump over hoops to go on a date, if you had to recite the dictionary word for word with the synonyms, the antonyms, if you had to do all the different parts of speeches, if you had to swim across a river of piranhas, get out of the river with piranhas, run across the Serengeti with the pride of alpha male hungry lions, to have a relationship with someone, would you do it? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, so
no.
We don't need a relationship with any American that lives in a bubble, that is fascinated and is stuck on the worldview that does not coincide intellectually with the rest of us, that understand that every single life is important. Now, you talked about the opposition. You talked about those that believe that snake in the grass, Derek Chauvin, that will not walk the yard or be on the line with no black man.
I don't know, the Attorney General.
I can probably.
Attorney General Kentucky.
When that man goes to prison in Minnesota, he's not going to be around no black man. I can trust that. I've never been to prison in Minnesota.
Neither have I, so can't speak on that.
Okay, but the bottom line is this. For those that think that that snake in the grass, Derek Chauvin, was innocent, say that in the projects. Say that on Compton Boulevard. I thought so. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. My point is this. How could you not put yourself in the shoes of our dear brother, George Floyd? Now, I've heard all the Fox News rhetoric. All my boys, all my brothers know, man, I watch Fox News 2-3 hours a day for the last 15, 20 years. Going back to the Bill O'Reillys, before this clown, before the latest Confederate clown, Tucker Carlson.
You heard it. That's why he's always had a thing
and the other daughters of the Confederacy,
from Marjorie Taylor
Laura
Greene.
Ingram and Megyn Kelly.
Don't forget
and
your girl, Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know you got a thing for her. You know you always had a thing for them soft blondes. It's okay.
Not Marjorie Taylor Greene. No. But they're all snakes in the grass. They're all snakes in the grass. And the bottom line is they're not let off the hook either. That's why we played that video by Bill Barr. And we have absolutely no feelings or emotions for those that believe that George Floyd, our dear brother, died because he was on cocaine or methamphetamines, or he had a potential irregular heartbeat, or he lost when he played basketball with his buddies, or he died because he didn't finish his beer. And there never was a planet called Pluto. Or Nat Turner was a revolutionary. We don't have any feelings or emotions about those who feel that our dear brother, George Floyd, died for any other reason besides a public lynching of that snake in the grass, David Chauvin.
No,
Derek.
Let's get that right. It's Derek Chauvin.
Derek.
Let's get that right. Derek. But you know what, DJ, if you don't mind, can we drop the beat to the opposition with what they said as far as...
Are you talking about the haters?
The haters.
Are you talking about those in denial?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our dear brother, George Floyd, died for any other reason besides a public lynching of that.
To see whether people who had, spent their nights planning for rioting and looting now actually go home, or whether they go ahead and hit the local Target in celebration, presumably, of the verdict. But I think one thing is pretty clear. For anybody who watched this case closely, I don't know how closely you watched it, Drew or Jeremy. I know, Matt, you watched it really closely. For people who watched this case closely, there are elements here that it's very difficult to make the case, to me, that any rational jury who just looked at the evidence would have come to the conclusion that beyond a reasonable doubt, Chauvin was guilty of second or third degree murder. This just did not fulfill the elements. The third degree murder charge particularly is absurd on its face. The third degree murder charge never should have been allowed in the courtroom. The third degree murder charge is a charge for what is generally called depraved heart murder. Depraved heart murder is you throw a brick onto a freeway and you don't have anybody you're explicitly attempting to kill, but you end up killing somebody on the freeway. You shoot a gun into a crowd. That's depraved heart murder. And that was what the third degree murder charge was. You have to have intent to kill others, right? And then you end up killing one person. It was counted anyway. It shouldn't have been on the docket. The second degree murder charge required felony assault that results in the murder. So usually that is where you're robbing a store, you got a gun, the gun accidentally goes off and kills somebody, right? Or the guy dies for some other reason while you're in the process of committing some sort of felony. So you had to show that he intended to commit a felony against George Floyd. It's very difficult to say that he intended to commit a felony against George Floyd because Minneapolis Police Department procedure allows you to do exactly what Chauvin was doing under these circumstances. The manslaughter one was a little bit easier to make because the charges in the manslaughter case, just have to have reckless disregard. So the prosecution can make the case that even if he didn't mean to do anything bad, it was reckless for him not to get off of Floyd. Once Floyd was already unconscious and once Floyd was dying, he should have gotten off of him, and it was reckless not to get off of him. But the fact that they convicted on all three counts says to me that they weren't really looking at the evidence because, again, all three of those charges also rely on a simple question of causation, right? Did George Floyd actually die because Derek Chauvin was on top of him with his knee? What the defense showed repeatedly is that he did not have his knee on his neck, right? There was no physical trauma to his trachea.
That man you just saw, his name is Ben Shapiro. He is a rat-faced dog. And you just saw it and heard it for yourself. Correction. It doesn't matter if that man's name is Derek or David Chauvin. I've been saying David. His name is Derek. So what? If you're not in America, understand something about the system, you won't see on television. That man that took our brother out for over 9 minutes in public will never be around a black man in the prison system in Minnesota. Talk to me, brother. Facts.
Ben Shapiro is
a rat-faced dog.
That was a Daily Wire. One of the reasons why we wanted to show that, and Candace Owens, if you're not familiar with her, she's on that show as well. The reason why we wanted to show that video to everybody is because there is a different reality for many of America.
Yes.
For many Americans. For the percentage of people, let's say, that stormed the Capitol to the percentage of people that voted for Trump after Proud Boys comments, after my African Americans, whatever it may be. There is a different reality of how race and just how people are considered and how they're respected. With Derek Chauvin or Philando Castillo or Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Eric Gardner, you name it. There is always going to be that slice of America that can justify the murder or killing of black people.
That's why Malcolm X explained it initially at the beginning of the...
Malcolm X explained it perfectly.
Absolutely.
And the reason why this is important for everybody to watch is because that voice is allowed and that voice has influence. We're not equal to the eyes of so many people in this country. What he just said about what Ben Shapiro just said, saying that the jury didn't look the case or didn't come up with the right verdict, or Derek Chauvin's knee wasn't on his neck, was just a separation from fact and fiction.
You know what else he said?
And reality.
You know what else
fantasy.
he said? He said, according to the history of America, there is no way a white cop should ever pay the penalty of killing a black man, even if it was in public recorded. Do not spit in our faces and then turn around and tell us, guess what? It's raining.
It's been raining a lot, so it is what it is. But again, that's why we had to show that video, and that's why that video was important, to see the thought. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some quote unquote conservatives or right leaning people that felt like justice was served, but even at that point, they were saying, okay, it's obvious, but why was George Floyd obvious, but Eric Gardner wasn't? Okay. Why was George Floyd obvious and Trayvon Martin wasn't?
Okay. Why wasn't it Murder One?
Why isn't Breonna Taylor not obvious?
Tamir Rice.
Why isn't Tamir Rice, who's 13, who's 12? I'm sorry, 12.
Yeah.
So
we don't mention Sandra Bland enough.
Sandra Bland. Why wasn't Sandra Bland? There's so many situations where, but it's obvious, right? But George Floyd, for whatever reason, is the obvious one. And that, for me, that's where
Well,
I kind of sit back and like,
well, not only was Derek Chauvin found guilty, the system was found guilty. That's why this is bigger than what we've all witnessed on television and on social media. It's much, much bigger than that. The history of the slave patrollers, i.e., cops, police, they have been on trial. Now, we throw around that, I get up at 3 in the morning and watch the former Congressman Joe Scarborough and Joy Reid and Miss Melissa Harris Perry and, all the educated professional professor brothers and sisters and journalists, et cetera, they have on there. And I'm so tired of people talking about these incidents and these tragedies and these lynchings without having to incorporate there's good cops. I'm tired of people talking about this without incorporate there's good white folks too. Okay, bottom line, look at me again. If there are so many good cops, don't listen to me, listen to your soul and your spirit. If there are so many good cops, why is there still systematic racism within the police department, within law enforcement, throughout the country in 2021 if there's so many good cops? Because if there were so many good cops, anytime you deal with human beings, a movement, a society, a civilization, and public opinion and outcomes, what moves the needle is then when the majority is fed up and literally does something by it, not with words, with actions. If there were so many good cops that stood up to bad cops, there would be no such thing as systematic racism, i.e., the lynching death of George Floyd. There are, now, are there good cops?
they're great cops. Absolutely.
Of course.
There's great cops out there. Absolutely.
Okay. Are there non-melanated individuals? Of course.
Absolutely.
We see them out, Heather Heyer, who died in Charlottesville when she was ran over by a white supremacist.
One of the good people.
Okay, but it doesn't change the facts.
Hey,
Can we agree that systematic racism still exists in America?
absolutely.
Well, that means that the bad white folk outweigh the good white folk, and the bad cop outweigh the bad cop outweigh the good cop. Based on those facts alone, 1 + 1 is 2. Before we take this call, I want everyone to call in and answer this question. Is 1 + 1 2? Is 2 + 2 4? Does the sun rise in the east and set in the west? Thank you for calling in. Talk to us. We'll talk back.
Hello, David and Eric. How you doing today?
Hello, Kevin. How's it going, sir?
Pretty good. Insightful discussion as usual.
Thank you.
And I listened to what you both had to say. But number one, you look at how these people tried to juxtapose this situation as anything other than outright murder. There's nothing you could call it. They tried the thing with the emissions, and the guy you just showed, I don't know what he was on, but the thing was obvious what happened. It really wasn't up for debate. And America really didn't have a choice at this crossroads but to just go ahead and state the obvious. But, you look at police reform, and you guys basically stated what was happening. A trial like this is a moral victory, but the bigger victory is to alleviate the need for these type of trials to even happen or to have to occur. And I think with the police reform, it really needs to look into this in detail, like cultural changes,
Yes.
training changes, the National Registry for Bad Cops. And I think what they really should do is once a cop does cross the line, even if it's a minimal line, it should just be loss of occupation and just vocational rehab into another profession altogether. I don't think it should take second chances and things to escalate to the point where you have murder and abuse and all that. So I think they're really looking in the right direction. And I think the thing about this trial, it set the stage for what level of observations and engagements we'll see in the future.
The only bad apples I see, my brother, are at Food for
Right.
Less.
And if you take a bad apple and you put it in the bushel, eventually it spreads to the
You're
other
right.
apples.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about that, Kevin. Just to FYI, just let you know, Ben Shapiro is from California, from sunny Southern California. He moved out of California to move to, if I'm not mistaken, to Tennessee. He's one of those, I left California kind of folks. But as the way he is as a conservative, California also went to liberal to progressive for him. But if you look at that, their network's called the Daily Wire. If you go, that's one. I kept the clip at 2 minutes. We try to do that here, keep it at 2 minutes. But I had to figure out which one I was going to choose because there's so many that will blow your mind off of what they said, and there's so many people. And sometimes I watch C-SPAN. There's so many people that call in, everyday people that call in the C-SPAN, saying like, I think the verdict was a little bit rough on Derek Chauvin. He wasn't perfect, but all 3 counts, whatever it may be. Policing is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard job. It's a dangerous job. But the amount of responsibility you have,
and the authority you
Honestly.
give
and
it.
authority you have,
Yeah, but
you have to change. You have to hold it with respect.
understand that, but how-
And if you're choking a man out for a supposed counterfeit bill, you don't belong.
And I'm not disagreeing with my brother, but how hard can it be? You have a weapon, you have a couple of extra magazines, you have the helicopter. That's not hard. Being a black man driving down Crenshaw with expired tags is hard.
And first thing you're gonna say is like, well, the tags were expired. Of course, expired. So of course you're gonna.
I'm trying to have a sense of humor. My point is, like Cube said, our skin is our sin. And what do you think about the comment we made that not only was Derek Chauvin put on trial, but as well as the United States justice system? What do you think about that before we let you go, please?
I think it's true because now, things up for debate. People try to engage in cognitive dissonance and see things the way they're not. But this was such a clear-cut case that it sets a new level of understanding and interpretation and processing of these type of situations.
Yes.
But like I say, the bigger key is to get on the front end and alleviate these type of situations from occurring.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Kevin, appreciate you as always. Thank you for your comments and your insight. We really appreciate you.
All right, you brothers take care. Fight
too.
the good
Thank
fight.
you.
Thank you.
I was paying attention to social media, as always, over the last couple of days. And one of the things that really hit home was our dear brother, rest in peace, rest in power, Dante Wright. Now, here we have a policewoman, 26-year vet of the force, confused her taser with a police-issued weapon.
Kim Potter, that's her name.
Kim Potter.
Kim Potter.
Snake in the grass. Kim Potter who murdered our dear brother Dante Wright. Let's go ahead and let the DJ drop that beat, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
In the first place. And so once people understand that and know that we need a different form of policing, that is when real change happens.
A lot of the things are mental health. We need more mental health workers in our communities and on our streets. That's what we need here. We don't need more militarization of our police forces.
The authorities hoped the resignation of the police chief and the officer who fired the fatal shot would lower the emotional temperature on a freezing night. The departures announced earlier in the day by the mayor.
We have received a resignation, a letter from Officer Kim Porter. And in addition to that, we have also received a letter of resignation from the police chief.
Kim Potter, a 26-year-old veteran of the force, was the officer who fired the fatal shot. She now faces possible manslaughter charges. The family of George Floyd took a break from the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis to offer support to the Wright family.
It is just something I could not fathom that in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a suburb 10 miles from where the Chauvin trial regarding George Floyd was taking place, that a police officer would shoot and kill another unarmed black man.
The police say the shooting was a tragic mistake. The officer intended to pull a taser, but she drew her gun instead. It's not a story the family is buying.
How many times in training over the course of 25 years has this officer pulled, aimed, and shot her firearm in practice? So don't tell us it's an accident, because it undermines the
I got a comment about the co-counselor for the Floyd family after Benjamin Crump. It looked pretty cold out there, but he was clean in that suit. I mean,
he was clean.
He wasn't even. It was like it was no sweat. He was going to show his suit with no hat, no nothing, no coat, just my blazer.
BC, man.
Hey.
On a serious note.
On a serious note, the Dante Wright case situation with Kim Potter. I'm gonna go back to your statement of the power and the responsibility police officers have, and not everybody can carry that power and responsibility. I personally don't think she went in like Derek Chauvin to kill.
I think she tried to kill him. 26 years on the force. You don't know the difference between. You know what made me say that? I don't mean to cut you off. Okay. What made me say that? I saw 5 different law enforcement sergeants, lieutenants that physically and literally demonstrated themselves attaching on their waistband their taser and their firearm.
Right.
Now, there's a weight difference. Okay, now, had she been a rookie, this would fly. Had she been on the force 5 years, this would fly. She is a 26-year veteran who had other officers with her that were engaging in training themselves. They were the trainees, and she was the trainer.
Just like with the Chauvin situation.
For Kim Potter to get in front of a microphone and say that she made a mistake, and like someone walking straight up to you in front of your children, spitting in your face and saying, "Look up, it's raining."
Here's the thing, and let me just say this, and I can say this. I'm saying this as the
cops I know wouldn't have made that mistake. She did it on purpose.
Here's the truth about policing, in just the flat out truth.
Okay.
There are a ton of police officers who work the job that don't see that level of action. When I say that level of action, meaning someone contrary to to what people may think, a good portion of interaction with police and black folks, a lot of them aren't aggressive.
Mm-hmm. I could agree with that.
And what I will say is that when that aggression is turned up, is when that police training is supposed to kick in. And you never know, and this is the sad truth about it. You never know how someone's going to act in a
I agree.
So what I'm trying to say for you, and I'm just talking about for her in this situation right here. She, in her mind, and I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, a gun weighs
Yes,
different.
sir.
A gun weighs different than a taser. But from the sound the way she reacted, from everything how it went down, when she said, "I used the wrong gun" or I accidentally shot him, I don't think her original intent was, "I'm gonna kill this young brother." Now that's what happened out of her quote unquote white woman fear, probably, most definitely. That's probably what happened. But when I look at that situation, and I look at an Eric Gardner situation, or I look at a George Floyd situation, or I look at a Tamir Rice situation, when I look at the cop just brutally know that they're going to kill somebody and brutally know what they did was like, hey, I did this, but hey, they was resisting. I can't say in my heart that's what I saw from her. I saw someone who, when the intensity is on, she shouldn't have a weapon. When the intensity is on, because we can talk all day on what police shouldn't do, and this is just me being a son of someone in law enforcement.
That's right, brother.
You never know. Like you hear us talk all the time. You hear people say all the time, "Man, if that dude was in my face, this is what I'd do."
Okay, I get that.
And when something happens, she
That
what she did was wrong.
Okay,
She shouldn't.
I get that.
She shouldn't get off. But I can't say it was like George.
That made a lot of
Derek
sense.
Chauvin.
That made a lot of intellectual sense. My point is this here. Every job is not for everyone.
I 1,000%
If you
agree
are
with you.
emotionally and psychologically weak, don't be a cop. If you were a punk in high school that didn't get a girlfriend until you got some money after high school, you shouldn't have been a cop. Okay, if you have anger issues and you can't talk things out like a man without getting physical or emotional or angry, you shouldn't have been a cop. Now, they don't make all these excuses when you're a black man and you get killed. They're going to do like George Floyd. He was on dope.
You're absolutely right. You're right 1,000%.
Now, one last thing. No disrespect to people that do any type of jobs. But if you can't do, okay, she should have been, you know what she should have did? She should have got online. I know she has a smartphone. Put in the application to make meatball sandwiches that are toasted at Subway instead of being a cop. Because if you have that much power, let me tell you something, man, to a certain extent,
You're going into.
I'm gonna tell you,
You're right. You're right. You're going
cops
into.
are almost
right.
God, bro.
You absolutely
They're
right.
almost God because
You're
they
right.
have the power not only to take human life, but to have the city, the local government,
Have your
the
back.
state,
To have your back.
and the
You're
feds.
Yes, to have your back.
back. How dangerous is a cop job when all I have to do is say, I'm in trouble, come for backup. Brother, I'm from Compton. They will call the helicopter.
I hear him. But you just said it. If you can't handle that responsibility, you shouldn't be a cop. So how thin?
She should have had a squeegee in her hand at the gas station. Instead of having a job where your
Life or death.
emotions
Yes.
and your moral compass and your worldview determines whether you will take human life in a situation where you may or may not be angry. Now, you know what else is conducive to this argument?
Mm-hmm.
You said your family were law enforcement.
Law enforcement and military.
My family was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Not only did I grow up in Compton, I grew up in Germany, France, and Belgium. Parlez-vous français, monsieur?
Oui, oui.
Oui.
Je m'appelle David.
Oui, monsieur. Army lieutenant officer in Virginia was treated like less of a man. We've all saw it. If you haven't saw it, let's check this out. We'll talk about it on the other side of the video.
Tonight, 2 Windsor, Virginia police officers are being sued by an Army second lieutenant, claiming his rights were violated during a traffic stop captured on multiple cameras.
Felony traffic stop. Put your hands out the window!
Police body camera rolling as an officer attempts to stop in early December for a missing rear plate on the SUV. Army Second Lieutenant Karan Nazario behind the wheel, pulling over at a gas station 100 seconds later and starting his cell phone camera. He had picked a well-lit place to stop, his lawyer says, for safety. He does have a plate, a temp plate taped to the back window of his brand new car. But as seen on the video, the situation goes south quickly as a second officer arrives on the scene.
Put your hands out the window and turn the vehicle off!
More than 20 times they order him out of the car.
Get out of the car now! Get out of the car! Now!
I'm honestly afraid to get out.
Yeah, you should be. Get out!
You feel like your client had a reasonable right to fear for his life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Officer Gutierrez kind of backs that up.
One of the officers pepper sprays Nazario and forcibly removes him from the SUV.
Get out of the car!
Nazario was released with no charges. Windsor police haven't responded to requests for comment. Nazario's attorney says his client is suing so that these incidents stop happening. Whit?
Okay, Alex Prochet for us. Thank you.
Let me say,
Go ahead.
you know, the princess of Arizona, another snake in the grass on The View, Meghan McCain, she said that the cops and law enforcement have so much respect for the military. I guess, unless you are black.
This video right here of Karan Nazario,
Yes.
the lieutenant.
Karan Nazario.
Karan Nazario, the lieutenant in Virginia, and the police officer that pepper sprayed him. His name is Joe Gutierrez, and the one behind him was Daniel Crocker.
Yes.
That's a great example of.
It don't matter who you are if you're black.
Doesn't matter who you are if you're black. You have a
It
uniform.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
He pulled over in a well-lit area.
He pulled over in a well-lit
He said,
area.
"Sir." He said, "Thank you." He showed his badge. He
And
had
they
on
were
his
still
uniform.
extremely aggressive with him. He had a uniform on. He pepper sprayed him.
And you know what else is crazy? When I talked about that book, 100 Years of Lynching, it has a few stories in there where it actually talked about black men, melanated men, being lynched in their uniforms.
And that's real.
2020, you saw the video. Go ahead. He wasn't lynched, but you see my point.
That was horrible.
Yes.
But the one thing I'm thankful for is that he's alive.
He was
Because
degraded.
He was degraded.
He
but
protects his country.
But
he was an officer.
He was off, but he's alive. They didn't shoot him. But they were horrible.
Is he dead on the inside?
Oh, he's been dead on the inside. He's been look. You serve your country. You put in the work. You become a lieutenant, only to get pulled over. Like it's 1919. Only to pull over. Like you were served in World War II, and like you said, got lynched. Like you said, your country doesn't respect you. That's what happened. Those cops, they do not belong on the force. But
Our skin is our sin.
But here's the thing that's scary. If he didn't have a uniform on, because I guarantee you,
If he didn't have that uniform on,
he probably would have been shot. And and that goes to show you the power. I say that I'm happy that he's alive.
I am as well.
But again, if you juxtapose both videos, going back to Potts in Minnesota.
Yes.
She wasn't. She wasn't. I swear to you, I'm not trying to protect her. I'm just trying to show the difference between levels of bad policing.
Yes.
Intent in bad policing.
I hear you, brother.
And melanated people, it's important that we know the difference.
Yes.
It's important that we see the difference.
Yes.
Because it just might save your life.
But on a micro level and on an intellectual, humanistic level, every job is not for everybody. Individual.
I agree. Yes.
For me, it's not about training. It's about who these particular and specific police departments are hiring. You can't hire an angry, immature person that was a punk in high school, give him a gun and say, make a phone call to helicopters in the sky. He's never been around black folk, think they're all thieves, think they're all criminals.
You know what you do? You know what you do? This with the police officer, the police academy, the police, just standard.
Yeah.
If you get that coward, that punk, who didn't get no girl, got picked on, whatever, felt inferior, however, and now they carrying a badge, they have power. Every cadet, especially non-melanated cadet, needs to live where they going to police every night. So they need to live in Compton. They need to live.
Nobody would ever get a ticket because half the police force would be empty.
They will have to live in Inglewood. They will have to live on the south side of Chicago.
You know, brother, I have driven from Los Angeles to Pittsburgh to New York to Kansas. You see signs that say Los Angeles sheriffs are hiring. I said, what is this doing out here in Arkansas? I see why we get cracked over the head.
The reason,
but go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, but you know what? You can hire them in Arkansas, but move them into the community. That's my whole thing. I think they should hire locally. I think they should hire locally. But my whole thing is this: if you're gonna hire, no matter who it is, move them into the community.
Okay.
Because you know what? This is the reality of it. This is the reality of it.
Okay.
If you, in policing in general,
yes,
in any, that goes to medicine too, in any profession,
yes,
when you have to deal with the public, life and death situations, you better know the people who you're working for. And only way, if you're coming from,
but you still have to be a certain type of person.
You have to be a certain type of person.
I agree with you. Know the people.
Know the people. If you're not that certain type of person, if you come in and you coming in from Arkansas, hey, you know what? You're hiring, you're paying well. Okay, well, you know what? You from Arkansas.
You just said bottom line, right? Another bottom line. It's not about me.
Right.
It's not about Mr. Harper.
Right.
It's not about melanated politics. It is about us. Going back to the Common Sense Dictionary, on page 1, there's a phrase. We can only accept what we are allowed to accept. No one can do anything to us as a people unless we accept it. This is not an opinion or feelings or complaint show. Facts. Now, our goal is to have spiritual and moral unification with like-minded individuals like ourselves, our producers, and those that we have been fortunate enough to be on board and watch the show. I'll say it again. Our tongue is our gun and our wisdom is our ammunition. Before I came today, brothers like Rock, brothers like, you're going to do the show, blah, blah, with Mr. Harper, right? I said, yes. He said, I'm not into politics. I said, well, politics are into you because this is war. Politics means war without bloodshed. It doesn't mean Democrats. Politics does not mean Republicans. Politics does not mean independents. Politics does not mean President Obama. It doesn't mean Joe Biden. It doesn't mean you're independent. Politics doesn't mean just where you vote. Politics means war without bloodshed. And if you do not believe we are at war, then understand this. When someone has declared war on you or not, it doesn't matter how you feel. We are at war. What's up with the cipher, man, before we close it up?
Listen, I want to thank everybody for watching the show. Please stay tuned, look out for everything, and please tune in next week. We appreciate you. And I appreciate you, Mr. Clark, for your wisdom and your guidance through this time.
Hey, one of the best brothers, one of the best friends I ever had, man. It's an honor to do the show with you. Thank you for tuning in. Let's stay strong. Let's stay connected. Let's stay together. Let's stop judging each other. Let's stay together. Let's get this money. Let's move forward, one foot in front of the other. Peace.
Peace.
We're out.